talk, yes, we're talking about Oasis. Hello, folks. We're gonna be doing a bit of an albums ranking today. All seven. We're gonna talk about the master plan, but we won't include it in the rankings because it's unfair. I feel like we'd all have it a little high, wouldn't we?
It would probably be number three for me if it was thrown in the ranking.
Yeah. And so we're gonna do our top seven top seven favorite Oasis albums. We'll give a brief mention and talk a little bit about the master plan, and then we'll do a 15 song compilation set list. Voted on. We're gonna vote on our favorite songs of the catalog and see if they can get on. Classic, good time and style. Best two out of three vote. Do you guys want to talk about Oasis? Like how you guys got into them at all?
Um, I mean, this is honestly my first time really like deep diving into a lot of the later catalog, but I don't know when was the first time I really heard Oasis because I didn't really hear them too much growing up. Maybe because we're in America and
Yeah.
I know they were popular here, but not that popular like they were in
Yeah,
the
they
US.
were Wonderwall popular. That's what they were.
Wonderwall and Champagne Supernova, I think were their two biggest here in the
Yeah.
States.
Yeah.
So I knew Wonderwall, and then I knew I knew Stop Crying Your Heart Out from somewhere, which I really like that one. Um, but yeah, maybe like I probably just heard them in passing somewhere, and I know Wonderwall is kind of a meme online. And then it was really, I would say like over the last like 2 or 3 weeks is probably like the first time I really deep dove into them. And honestly, I came away liking most of their albums, and I think even like their weakest material is still very listenable. Like nothing stands out as like god awful, like oh my god, throw it away. So yeah, that's just kind of my thing with Oasis.
Yeah, so my knowledge of them, a few years ago I kind of went into like a Britpop deep dive where I started checking out some more Britpop bands because it was a genre I hadn't really explored much. And Oasis was one of the first bands I really checked out. So I remember checking out their first couple albums. I liked quite a few of the songs from them, but really this was the first time I had explored much of their kind of later catalog. A lot of their later songs I'd never even heard before, never even listened to the albums outside of maybe a song or two. So really, this was kind of my first deep dive, kind of like what Matt said. But I definitely think for me, they're my favorite Britpop band for sure. They have so many classic songs that I really love. Really great songwriting from Noel and great vocals from Liam, and Liam even contributed some great songs himself. So, really great band. I definitely see why they were so big. I'm glad that we did this deep dive because I've discovered a lot of really great songs I'd never even heard before doing this. So I'm excited to talk about them.
Yeah, I think I have the most. I think I'm probably the biggest Oasis fan of all of us.
Yeah,
Um,
I would say so, but I'm getting.
Granted, I like Blur better as a band, and I'm sure we will talk about or at least mention the rivalry and who we prefer. Um, but Oasis was kind of my the great gateway drug for me outside of the 60s and 70s music that I loved. Um, I honestly I remember the exact moment. It was in the summer and I was driving with my brother and he's like, "Oh, I know you're a big Beatles fan and I know you never want to listen to Oasis because you say they're Beatles copies." I died on that hill that Oasis were just a bunch of ripoffs. That's because I never listened to them.
Yeah.
But I was like, "All right, fine. You can play one song by Oasis." And that song was Some Might Say from What's the Story Morning Glory. And I was like, "All right, this shit's actually pretty damn good."
Some might say, yeah, that's a good one.
And maybe it's because I was getting into Pink Floyd at the time. But that one line, "Don't need no education in the rain." I don't know. The way that Liam sang it and like the guitars and the chord progression, I didn't really know chords super well yet when I learning guitar, but it just clicked with me. And it was the greatest gateway drug into music for me because I finally stepped out of 60s and 70s territory. I finally broke into alternative rock. And a couple years down the line, the Stone Roses are my favorite album of all time. And obviously, they were a massive influence on Noel Gallagher. Noel Gallagher said that he heard Sally Cinnamon by the Stone Roses live, and that's when that's when he knew that he wanted to do music. Um, I would definitely wouldn't have been a Blur fan, which is kind of crazy to think about because they're one of my favorite bands of all time too now. But Oasis was kind of my first love with alternative rock. I listened to every album. Obviously, there's two standout albums that are biblical, as Liam Gallagher would say. But I also liked a great deal of some of their later stuff. And I think that's because similar to the Beach Boys, I went into Oasis very unbiased. I mean, I knew the songs, I knew about the two albums, but I didn't know that the other albums were kind of forgotten. I just kind of figured that not as good. But yeah, I love Oasis. They're my first love with alternative rock, and I'm really glad that my brother introduced me to them because him and I now have tickets to see them when they come to MetLife next year. And yeah, I love Oasis. But I
Yeah.
do think that Noel, we could talk about the derivativeness of his songwriting in parts, I'm sure, but like I think he's just one of the all-time great British songwriters. I don't give a shit if he borrows from other artists or steals from other artists. And his way of songwriting is very influential on me. I can't really get into the schematics without like talking about it for like 20 minutes. So I'll save you guys that. But very influential for me as my own musician, one of my favorite bands of all time, and has one of my favorite albums of all time. So with that being said, sorry about my little rant. Do you guys want to get into the ranking?
Sure.
All right. I want to start off by saying I said with Blur that I don't think they have an album that is less than good. I think Blur has all like 7 out of 10s or higher. I think a similar thing can be said about Oasis, but down a peg. I think that there is no album that is bad. I think they have 5 out of 10s or higher with albums, in terms of like how I personally rank them. So number 7, I have Dig Out Your Soul, 5 out of 10. I think that this one kind of suffers from just being a later period album. This was their, I guess, quote unquote, keeping the summer alive for our Beach Boys fans. This was their MIU, where they kind of reached the point where there's some good stuff on it, and but it's almost derivative of their derivative work. And you can kind of, in this part of the band's history, they were kind of like really falling apart. So I don't think that Noel was able to work on his like best. And I know they're kind of sharing songwriting credits around this time, but I don't think there's anything truly bad on this album. I think the mixing could have been a bit better. I don't like the way Liam's vocals are mixed in some of the songs. And I think there's a little bit of autotune being used on Liam's voice. I know at this point in time, Liam's voice was really, really bad. I think he had some sort of throat disease. I know that he never had proper singing education, so his voice was really raspy. It was just really broken down. But that's not to say he doesn't have any good vocal moments on here. I do like the Shock of the Lightning, and I'm out of time. And I do think at this point, honestly, more than Definitely Maybe and What's the Story, Morning Glory, and Be Here Now is where you have a lot of Beatles influence on some of the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is pretty weird because you kind of hear their like first albums we talked about as like super Beatlesy. I think the later period albums were very Beatlesy more than the debut. But yeah, I think it's a solid effort. I like Shock Lightning and I like I'm Out of Time. There's a couple of other moments on there that I really like. But I think this more than anything is just it's far more boring than any of their other albums are. So I don't see myself returning to it too much, but I don't think it's bad. And I definitely think it's better than a lot of like some of the crap that was coming out at that point in time. So like even the worst Oasis album, I'll take over some of the shittiest shit that came out on the charts back in 2008. Yeah,
Okay.
Dig Out Your Soul. Not much else to say about it.
So number 7 for me, Heathen Chemistry. I kind of agree with Liam that this is like their weakest one, his least favorite. It's just kind of bland for me. Like I think it has a couple good songs on it. I really love Stop Crying Your Heart Out, and I like Songbird a lot. But as a whole, it's just kind of bland for me. It just kind of like it's just not like it's just compared to what it's sandwiched in between. I like both of those a lot better. So it's fine. I don't think it's bad. It's just a little on the bland side for me. And what is kind of cool about this one, though, this is the first one where you had people other than Noel and writing songs and Liam. You had Jem Archer and Andy Bell that had some songs on here, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, so number 7 for me, Heathen Chemistry.
All right, so number 7 for me is Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. Um, I, yeah, I mean, I know.
Messed up.
I think I knew already. Maybe Riley, you'd mentioned liking this album. I think you shared a couple of songs with me from this one. But personally, not a lot of this stuff clicked with me. Just not most of the Oasis albums, I can easily pick out a standout track or two. But on this one, really, there wasn't that much that really jumped out at me. It might just be a taste thing with me, but not a lot of the stuff clicked with me. So in terms of my notes for this one, the opener, Fucking in the Bushes. This is I wrote it's kind of a noisy experimental instrumental, which is not really what I'm looking for. It's not really what I'm looking for from Oasis.
I love it.
It doesn't really do a lot for me, and I don't think it's the greatest way to open the album. The song Go Let It Out. This seems to be one of the more liked songs on the album. But again, doesn't really do a whole lot for me. Feels kind of repetitive, and I don't really find it that interesting. Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is, I thought was a decent rocker. I didn't think it was spectacular, but I thought it was all right. Where Did It All Go Wrong? I thought was a solid mid-tempo song sung by Noel. Probably my favorite song that made the album. But besides that, not too much stuck with me. There wasn't really anything that I thought was bad, but a lot of it just did not click with me, and I don't really see myself revisiting a lot of this stuff. I did want to shout out the song "Let's All Make Believe," which was the B side of "Go Let It Out." This song would have been one of my favorite tracks on the album had it been included. It actually would have been my favorite song in the album. I think it has a really strong melody and very moving lyrics, and it sticks with me more than any of the other songs that made the album. So sorry to break your heart on this one, Riley, but stop crying your heart out. So number 7 for me, Standing on the Shoulder of Giants.
Fuck you.
Yeah, I would.
You're off your fucking rocker, huh? Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why you didn't like it very much, Jake. It's
Yeah,
definitely it's
I
not your
don't, yeah,
wheelhouse.
I don't
Go
think it's a
fuck
bad.
yourself in some bushes.
Like Riley said, I don't think they have a bad album, but just like this is not, especially after listening to like, you know, those first couple albums and then even Be Here Now. And then this is just such a change in style, I feel like. And it just does not, I just don't think the songwriting is as good, but it's just my opinion.
It was a proper evolution. That's what it was.
Okay,
Go fuck yourself in some bushes.
number 6.
All right, number 6, I have Be Here Now. But that being said, like I said there, I don't think there is any bad Oasis album. I think that this one is quite honestly the highest of Oasis and the lowest of Oasis, and it balances out at a perfect 5 out of 10 for me. And I think a 5 out of 10 album is very listenable. And I think that the biggest thing with this album, the thing that does have make it have the worst of Oasis is that it is overproduced and overlong. I think if you change the production, you honestly strip it back to something more akin to the debut, because I feel like these songs are rockers. They have heavy guitars on them. They would benefit from that production from the debut, rather than having 15 guitars on one track, and just making every song 7 minutes. I think that because there is some quality songwriting. Even there, what it has to be noted though that Noel had written these songs a little differently. Um, he was very much rushed into making these songs. They were heavily touring. They had Nebworth,
Out of this too.
right, and lots of fucking cocaine. So all that together, and Noel kind of had to rush out some songs. He wasn't doing the same songwriting process that he was doing back with Definitely Maybe and What's the Story, Morning Glory, where he kind of had most of those prepared ahead of time. He's able to really flesh them out. That being said, I think you have one of the best songs in the entire catalog, and I know for a fact Jake will agree with me on this with Stand By Me.
Yes,
That's an incredible song.
amazing
And
song.
even though I objectively, I would say it overstates his welcome, I don't really notice it because I really love that chorus. I only really notice it at like 6 minutes in, and then like, well, there's only like 20 seconds left in the song, so whatever, I might as well listen to it. I think that the title track is a pretty good rocker. I really enjoyed Don't Go Away.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the other songs, I do really like them, and I think I would just really notice the better qualities if they weren't 7 minutes. I know All Around the World is insanely long.
Too long.
Um, I'll admit, I think that's the one with the reprise, right?
Yes.
It comes
Yeah, the
back for
record.
2 more minutes. You can tell that they made this album with a lot of cocaine. And I think I can just picture not Noel, because Noel was known as the chief. He was the chief. He put his foot down. He had the final say. But I could totally see Liam being like, "Oh, 7 more minutes, man! 7 more minutes!" Like the cocaine and excess of the '90s is very much present on this album. I can honestly, I'm not sure why this hasn't happened yet, because there's like other takes. There's like the acoustic take with Bonehead, who was one of the guitarists at the time. He's like the rhythm guitarist. With him, I'm pretty sure singing "Stand By Me" and it's like an acoustic track, and it sounds really good. I can totally. I'm not sure why they haven't done it yet. I would love to see a complete remix, or I guess demix of the album, and also like cut out some of the time and make it like a 46-minute album. I could see that being insanely good.
Yeah.
It's just one of those ones where it's too much. It's all too much. As the
For me to take.
It's all too much, but I do think it's good. And I think more than anything, this one's remembered for killing the momentum. But I don't think that means it should be remembered as like the worst album of all time. I think it's disappointing, but it's definitely not bland, and there's definitely some insanely good songwriting moments on it. So I definitely think it's worth an unbiased listen. It's kind of like Summer in Paradise if the songwriting was like three notches higher.
This is way better than Summer in Paradise.
But that was my number. My number six is Be Here Now. 5 out of 10, but it's the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows, and lots of cocaine.
Um, my number six as well, for every reason you stated, is Be Here Now. I really think that this is a record that I think you said it best, where like tighten it up, strip back the production. This is easily like three places higher on my ranking because like there's a lot of good stuff on here. It's just bloated and it's bloated and overproduced is what it is basically. And what's very odd is that this originally got really good reviews, and then a couple years later, everyone's like, it sucks ass. So it's like just like it's like people are fickle, right? A lot of people also say too, and you might agree with this, Riley, that the reason this was so praised at the time is because some critics were very kind of shy or like didn't want to give them the credit for Definitely Maybe and What's the Story of Morning Glory, so they piled the praise on this as like retroactive praise for the first two, and then that's like
I think this is a fantastic case on why Rolling Stone magazine and a lot of music media is absolute shit
yeah.
because they just follow the trends, and the trend of the time was Oasis, and they just broke through to the U.S. with Champagne Supernova and Wonderwall. Of course, they're going to give it insanely high reviews. That's why Sabrina Carpenter's album is getting these insanely high reviews. But retroactively, in a couple of years, we're gonna be like, yeah, that was a piece of dog shit, wasn't it?
Well, I mean I'll talk about this very briefly because I don't want to get too
No, just skip it, man. Just skip
okay,
it.
skip. Anyway, I agree with what you said. The two songs. I also really like Do You Know What I Mean? I like that one as well. I think that's a cool opener. But yeah, kind of same reasons you stated. And I do want to give a shout out to our listeners. Todd in the Shadows did a great video on this as part of his train record. So definitely go check that one.
I like how I mean obviously he like rips into the album in the video, but I do like that how he does say like there's good moments, there's good songwriting. It's just so overblown, and there's
It's way overblown.
so it.
I will say too, this may have my favorite album cover by theirs. It does have a very nice album cover.
You know, also has a great album cover, Summer in Paradise.
It actually does. I agree. Summer in Paradise is the best thing about it. Okay. Anyway, number six. Be Here Now.
All right. So number six for me is an album Matt already talked about, Heathen Chemistry. I personally like there's more songs in here that I connect with than Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. The songwriting style I feel like is a little closer to the classic Oasis sound that I like. But again, I wouldn't say most of the material really jumped out at me. I think most of it was just okay. But there definitely were some more standout highlights for me on this one, which is why I ranked it higher. I thought the opener, the Hindu Times, was a really strong rocker to open the album. I remember I listened to this one right after listening to Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. And it was really refreshing hearing like a classic sounding Oasis sounding song again. So I really like that one a lot. Stop Crying Your Heart Out, as Matt mentioned, is a really great ballad. Probably my favorite song on the album. Really moving lyrics on this one. I really like the line, all of the stars have faded away. Just try not to worry. You'll see them someday. And yeah, it's just a very, very nice song. And I can see why it's really popular. Songbird. So this was apparently the first Oasis single that was written by Liam. And I think it's really good. It's a pretty simple song, but I find it very moving. And I like the really soft production on it with the piano and the strumming guitar. And it's another highlight of the album for me. So yeah, like I mentioned, the rest of the material on here I thought was okay. I don't think there's really any bad songs, but not too much really stuck with me. I'll also say that the Cage, that track at the end, the bonus track, the Cage, is not a strong enough track to justify the 28-minute wait. So not sure what that's about, but yeah, overall, I don't think this is a bad album. I think it has some standout tracks, but I do think it's a far cry from some of the albums that preceded it. So it's number 6 in my ranking.
It's number 5 on mine. I also Heathen Chemistry number 5. I'm giving it a 5.5 out of 10 because as much as I love Stand By Me and Don't Go Away on Be Here Now, Stop Crying Your Heart Out and She Is Love are two incredible songs, especially Stop Crying Your Heart Out. But Jake, the reason that these are classic Oasis sounding songs is because they got shit for Standing on the Shoulder of Giants from people like you who didn't like their shift in direction, even though I think he was absolutely incredible. Anyways, They went back to the classic Oasis sound, and instead of because you know what, Jake, you're just like Mike Love, because you know what they did? They stuck with the fucking formula this time. That's not to say there's bad stuff. I think, like I said, the Hindu Times is a great opener. Stop Crying Your Heart Out, classic Noel Gallagher songwriting. You could drop this on What's the Story, Morning Glory, and I wouldn't notice a different, like anything different. I think it's incredible, and I think it's one of the most evocative songs they've ever done. Songbird is a fantastic song by Liam. I'm glad that he got some moments to shine as a songwriter. Shout out his work with John Squire from the Stone Roses, particularly the song "Love Me or Leave Me" from the Seahorses which is when he started to write actual music. Anyways, She Is Love is great, but honestly, other than that, it's kind of their it's kind of their keeping the summer alive. It's kind of their I guess maybe it's better to say it as this whole album is their do it again for our Beach Boys fans, because they were pressured to go back to their old sound, so that's what they did, and that's kind of what came out of it. You even see it with the cover a little bit, because you with Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, you kind of have the poppy blue color, and then they're kind of just going back to that classic Oasis look. I think it's fine. I love Stop Crying Your Heart Out. I love She Is Love. So it has highlights, but the other stuff is just kind of bland. But and Songbird's great, but a couple standouts, but nothing to push it over the next four, which have an exponentially high jump for me. So number 5, Heathen Chemistry.
So number 5 for me is Don't Believe the Truth. I felt that this, you didn't like me ranking that low, huh? This and Dig Out Your Soul for me are like swappable. I'm surprised you ranked that last. I actually quite like that one, but hey.
Yeah.
That was pretty high for me. But anyway, I Don't Believe the Truth, definitely a step up from Heathen Chemistry when it comes right after. And I definitely think that this is kind of like even more of a return to the classic Oasis sound, but even better. The songs that I really liked were Lila, The Importance of Being Idle, and Turn Up the Sun were the ones that I took as highlights. Yeah, I really do like this one. I just think that the reason why this one ranks at number 5 for me is just because I do like Dig Out Your Soul a little bit more. I kind of liked more of that psychedelic thing they were going for, but that's just me. Everybody's different. You ranked it. I was actually kind of shocked you ranked it that low, to be honest with you. I didn't want to say anything, but I'm like, that's
I think some of that came down to the mixing. I do appreciate some of the more experimental aspects of Dig Out Your Soul, but I don't think the songwriting was completely there.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to that one and I was like, damn, this is like funky psychedelic. I'm like, this is pretty high for me. So like that's why I ranked it. So yeah, but that's Don't Believe the Truth. Number 5, but I could definitely see this one with more repeat listings, probably going a little bit higher. But yeah, no, definitely I think a big step up from Heathen Chemistry. And I definitely think that this was probably like the best album they had done in a hot minute. So number 5 for me.
Well, Riley's gonna be not so happy to hear that this is my number 5 as well. Don't Believe the Truth.
Oh my god.
I pretty much echo everything that Matt said, to be honest. I think it's kind of them going back to their classic sound again, but I do think it's a step up from their previous album. In terms of the highlights on here, I pretty much the same tracks that Matt mentioned. Turn Up the Sun, I think, was a really strong opener. Has kind of the classic Oasis sound with the loud guitar and Liam's vocals. I thought it was interesting that this wasn't written by Liam or Noel. It was written by Andy Bell, who was their bassist at the time, which I thought was pretty cool because I think it's a really strong track. And I especially like the guitar in the last minute or so of this song. And I think it's one of the highlights of the album. The track Lila, I know this was one of the big hits from the album, but personally, I think it's just okay. I don't find it near as memorable as some of the earlier singles, but I think it's fine for what it is. I can see the appeal of it. But The Importance of Being Idle, I think this is a much stronger single. I think this is a great song. Has a really strong melody, and it kind of has that psychedelic sound to it, which I really like. Some kind of fun and quirky lyrics on this one too, about kind of like feeling lazy and being content with it. So I really like kind of the lyrics on this one. And I think it's a really fun song. And I think it's one of the highlights of the album. I really enjoyed it a lot. And besides those tracks, Part of the Queue I thought was a decent mid-tempo song. I like the piano that comes in during the second half. So I thought that was a decent track. And Let There Be Love I thought was a decent ballad. But yeah, the rest of the material on here I thought was okay. Not too much of it stuck with me, but I think this is one of those albums where if I re-listen to it, I can probably find some more material that clicks. But I've only heard a lot of these songs only once or twice. So overall, though, I think it's a decent album. But again, I don't think it reaches the heights of some of their earlier material. So
fun thing I want to say about this before we move on. I actually found this at Goodwill. years ago, and I bought it, but I just kind of left it on the shelf. And it was actually one of those like they used to make the dual discs that were like a CD DVD combo. It's like one of those. It's kind of cool.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I found it at Goodwill. So I thought it was interesting that I found that one of all things at Goodwill. Not definitely maybe, not What's the Story Morning Glory, not even Be Here Now. Don't
Well,
believe the truth.
people are hanging on to those.
Yeah, probably. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, if you want to know how big the jump is between my number 5 and number 4, I am going to an 8 out of 10 here. And I am going to talk about Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. I think that this is an awesome evolution in their sound. I love that they're incorporating a lot of psychedelia in here. I think the production is awesome. I love that the band is becoming a little bit more democratic. Even though I think Liam's song is the worst song on the album, I'm glad that he's starting to move more as an artist, but the production on here is fucking incredible. I love the psychedelic sounds. I love some of the instruments they're starting to include. This point in time, Noel was a lot less of the quote unquote the chief than he was in the early years. His songwriting process changed pretty much completely because most of the songs he was writing earlier were either alcohol induced or drug induced, and now he has gone completely clean. So he had to completely change the way he approached songwriting, which I think is so cool. I think the opener, Fucking in the Bushes, is the greatest album opener of the past 24 years. I think it's one that they would walk out to on concert, and it's one that if I ever perform with the band, I think I could totally see us doing that live. I think it absolutely rocks. I love the little sample in there. It's like, those kids running around fucking in the bushes. Those kids running around fucking in the bushes. And then the little old lady at the end. I've listened to this song so many times. It's one of my most streamed songs this year. Go Loud It Out. Go Let It Out rocks. I love Who Feels Love. Gas Panic is so cool. I like the little opener of the and I think it's one of their most like stadium rocker, like the biggest, like one of the best stadium rockers they've done in a while. Sunday Morning Call is such an awesome song. I love that Noel gets lead on that. I think his voice is beautiful. It's a nice, slower tempo track. Roll It Over is an incredible song. I know they didn't really do it live. I think Liam has started doing that one live only like last year. But I think this more than anything, it's so consistent, minus Little James, but it's so consistent. I love that they're branching out with their sound. I wish they continued to branch out with their sound, but you have people like Jake who say, no, Oasis, stick to the fucking formula. I am so curious what could have come after this if they got much more praise. But I love the new direction. I really wish they stuck with it. I honestly see this as their most like Sergeant Pepper's influenced album in many ways. I love just the general sonic, like the way the music is like being played. I think it's sonically very pleasing to the ears. I love a lot of the songwriting. I love that it's a much more democratic process, which I feel like is a great evolution for the band. Unfortunately, they didn't stick with that direction, but as if you've been paying attention to my rankings, there is another album that kind of continues after this of like the quote unquote original direction that I do like more than this. So I guess I win some, I lose some, but I love this album. It's an 8 out of 10 for me. Yeah, I love Standing on the Shoulder of Giants.
Okay. Number 4 for me is Dig Out Your Soul. I actually really quite like it. I like that they kind of went more like to the psychedelic stuff. The mixing, yeah, it could be a little bit more work, but and this is very Beatlesy, which I like. Other than the songs that you mentioned, I know you mentioned which one was it, The Shock of the Lightning and I'm Out of Time.
Yeah.
The other one I really, really liked was Get Off Your High Horse Lady. I don't know what is going on with that song, but something about it is just so intoxicating and hypnotic. Bag It Up was a good opener, but I really enjoyed it, honestly. Like I liked the sound they were going for. I think that, it kind of felt like there was like even more kind of like they had a kind of a renewed energy with this one. I think that it would be interesting to see where they were going from here if they had continued. I know they had the big falling out while they were touring for this one. This also got some of their best reviews in a long time. Like a lot of critics seem to really like this album, other than Pitchfork, but Pitchfork wrote shitty reviews of almost all their albums. I don't know if you saw the review of Heathen Chemistry. It was not good. It was really bad. But yeah, 1.2 or something crazy. It's not that bad. They're just being stupid. But yeah, no, I really enjoy this one. And yeah, I like the sound they were going for. And like I said, I would like to have seen where they would have gone after this if they had continued. Now I'm hopeful though that we get a new album with this reunion. I would like a new album. I want to see what Oasis sounds like, in 2025 or 6, whenever it comes out. So let's fingers crossed on that one. But yeah, Dig Out Your Soul is my number 4.
Well, me and Matt still on the same page here because Dig Out Your Soul is my number 4 as well. Yeah, kind of like what Matt said. I like kind of the psychedelic influence of this album. I like how the kind of interesting their sound on this one. I feel like is less of the classic Britpop sound and more of like just a straight up like alternative rock sound. But I actually really like that. I think it's kind of a refreshing change. I will say, like, I don't think, kind of like what Riley said, I don't think the songwriting as a whole is like super strong throughout the whole album. But I think that the highlights on here are actually like really, really strong. The song "The Shock of the Lightning" I thought was a really great track. Very psychedelic sounding kind of rock song. I really like the production on this, and it's definitely one of the standouts of the album for me. The song "I'm Out of Time" I thought was a really nice ballad written by Liam. Very Beatlesque sound to it, and it's one that I think really shows Liam's capabilities as a songwriter. And then also the track "Falling Down." I know a lot of fans of the band seem to consider this one a big highlight of the album. It's still kind of growing on me, to be honest, but I do really like the production on this one. I think the lyrics are pretty moving as well. And then lastly, I wanted to shout out the song "Soldier On," which was the closing track in the album. I thought that was a pretty decent ballad. So overall, I think this is a pretty solid album. Definitely quite a few tracks on here I can see myself coming back to, and I think it's kind of an interesting change of sound for them. Obviously, this is their last album to date. I think it was released 2009, so it's been quite a while since it was released. But like Matt said, it would be interesting to see where the band would go from here if they do release another album. If it would kind of lean more into this like more like straight up alternative rock sound, or if they want to lean more into their old classic Britpop sound. So curious to see what could come next.
Yeah, I like the production on it a whole lot. I think that's kind of what saves the album for me because I mean, minus the shock of the lightning and I'm out of time, and I guess falling down too. Um, Songwriting is pretty weak, but
I think towards the end it starts to really fall off. Like besides "Soldier On," like the last few songs, I was kind of like kind of they're fine, but like it's kind of nothing stuck.
yeah. All right, my number 3 is "Don't Believe the Truth." I got this at an 8.5 out of 10. It is a return to form production wise and arrangement wise, but the opposite of Heathen Chemistry, the songwriting on here is not only consistent, but it is so fucking good. It's weird because I hate a song called "Take a Load Off Your Feet." And part of me really wants to hate the song "Lucky Fingers," but I think it fucking slaps. I love how it's I think it's if Fingers wasn't in the name of the song, it might be like my top 10 Oasis songs. It just fucking slaps. I love Lila. I think it's very catchy. The chorus is like not one I would expect myself to like, but like Matt, before we started recording the episode, in my head after hearing that song, I'm like, "Hey, Lila." I loved it. "Love is a Bomb" is awesome. "The Importance of Being Idle" absolutely rips. Yeah, I love the little like beat to it. I think it's very catchy and I love it. "God Thinks I'm Able" is pretty damn good. I love "Keep the Dream Alive," but there is the closer to this album is one of my all-time favorite Oasis songs ever. And that is "Let There Be Love." I love how the vocals change between Liam and Noel. I just think it's one of the prettiest ballads that Noel ever wrote. And I'm glad it was the closer to the album. I think it's very fitting. And this just I can talk about pretty much every song on here. I think it's very consistent, but it's kind of what makes a perfect album for me. Even though it's not like a 10 out of 10. I think that like some of the songwriting could have been better, but granted, this is like 10 years into their career. It has everything. It has consistent songwriting and it has those standout singles, those standout songs that I love that will make me return to the whole album. If for people that say Oasis are a 2 album band, this is probably the first album I'd point them to because I absolutely love it. And that last song, man, "Let There Be Love," is absolutely incredible. That's a 10 out of 10 song for me. And that's one of the first songs that show people to the greater Oasis catalog past the debut and "What's the Story, Morning Glory." And it sucks because I love this album, but those 2 albums ahead of it are 2 of the greatest albums ever released. So it's really hard to point fans to this album. I really would love to see "Let There Be Love" done live next year. I think that's just one of Noel's greatest songs. period.
So number 3 is Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. I like it a lot more than Jake does, Riley. I see why you like it. And honestly, I quite like it too. It's a change of pace. I like the electronica stuff that's going on. I like kind of like what are they going, like Chemical Brothers kind of thing going on there. The intro is really awesome. I really like the songs Gas Panic, Who Feel Love, Where Did It All Go Wrong, Sunday Morning Call. I find those very moving songs. I really feel like this was kind of like Noel coming out of like the cocaine haze of Be Here Now and trying to kind of go back to the roots, but also kind of try to shift the sound a little bit. So I think it's a really good mix of like the raw, more kind of like touching songwriting with like that kind of cool, different sound they were going for. And I really do enjoy it. And I think it's very unfortunate that this kind of got so like shat on that even Noel, it sounds like, kind of regretted making it, which is a bit of a shame because I really, really like it, honestly. And I would have liked to hear them kind of go more in this style. So I think it's a really good album. I can see why you like it a lot.
Yeah, Noel was pretty much well, here's the thing. So they had Bonehead and I think Diggsy was still with them. Noel wanted to get off the smack and everything. He wanted to get off alcohol, everything. He wanted to go completely clean. He kind of got Liam to go along with him. And that's where the split was because Bonehead and I think Diggsy was still with them.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to keep drinking. They wanted to keep doing the drugs, which I think is pretty funny because when you look back on the history, you'd think it would be the opposite. But so they left the band, and it's pretty funny because they were founding members. They were with Liam when they were before Noel even came in, but they left. So they kind of changed up everything. It was a complete 180 from where they were. So they went with a new sound, new everything, new band members, a little bit more democratic. You see Liam get a songwriting credit with Little James. He asked for that to be on the album. And when Noel said yes, Liam's like, wait, I wasn't being serious, but he gets it on. Much more democratic process, which kind of continues. I'm not sure if this is when Andy Bell joined. But yeah, it was a complete 180 from where they were. And I am glad that they at least attempted to change up their style. Because if they could have easily gone the Mike Love route of just banging out more Don't Look Back in Angers every single album. And they kind of did a little bit, but I feel like if they straight continued that sound, we would not have gotten albums like Don't Believe the Truth or just more Heathen Chemistries, you know.
All right, so number 3 for me, I ranked this one quite a bit higher than you guys, but I went with Be Here Now. I kind of get all the criticisms involving this album. I do think that it's overbloated. I think the majority of the songs do go on too long. Definitely could trim off at least a couple minutes off a lot of these songs. And as Riley, I think, mentioned, like, it's also like in terms of the production, it's very loud, very overproduced. Some of these songs, like, I'm somebody that has a pretty high tolerance for like my level of loudness in music, but some of these songs I feel like I can barely, like, the vocals are just being like overwhelmed by the sound of the guitars, just the layered guitars. So very loud album and a very long album. So I do get the criticisms. But the reason I ranked it so highly is because there's just more songs here that stick with me than any of the albums that followed it. Not to say I like every song, because I don't, but there are some songs on here. There are more songs on here that I do see myself coming back to. So to start with the opener, Do You Know What I Mean? I think this is an okay opener. It kind of has the classic Oasis sound with the loud wall of guitars and like the sing-along chorus. I have to say, though, it did feel a little bit underwhelming to me listening to this after the first 2 albums. Compared to a lot of their previous singles, this kind of feels like it's missing something to me. I also think it's too long, which, like I said, is an issue with a lot of the songs in this album. My Big Mouth, I thought, was a really strong rocker. I like the riff on this a lot, and it's got a powerful chorus. I already knew that this album was going to be obnoxiously loud, but this was definitely the first song where I was like, wow, this is very loud. Like, the guitars are just cranked up all the way. I wish you could hear the vocals a little better and the guitars were a little bit toned down on this, but I do think it's a good song, and it is one that I can see myself coming back to. Magic Pie, not a fan whatsoever. Way too long. One of my least favorites on the album. Stand By Me, like Riley mentioned, this is the first song on the album that I think is up to par with the material on their first 2 albums. I think this is a great song, really great melody. Again, very like Beatlesque sound to it. And it's funny because I actually wrote the same thing that Riley said. I said it doesn't really outstay its welcome for me, even though it is a longer track. I think that that's just a really strong melody, and it doesn't really get old for me. I think it's a really well-written track. And I also wanted to mention I love the acoustic version of this song from 1997 where Liam and Noel are playing it by the pool. I think that's a really great performance too. And I think it shows that the song is strong enough to stand on its own without all that heavy production on it. So a really great track there. I Hope I Think I Know, I thought was an okay rocker. I think a lot of fans seem to like this one, but I thought it was all right. I don't think it's quite as strong as My Big Mouth, but I liked it enough. The Girl in the Dirty Shirt I thought was decent. I like the pre-chorus, like the You've Got a Feeling Lost Inside, It Just Won't Let You Go. But it doesn't really stick with me as a whole. And another one that goes on way too long. It did not need to be nearly 6 minutes. In terms of other tracks, also wanted to shout out Don't Go Away. For me, this one is really close to being like the other classic on this album, along with Stand By Me. In my opinion, though, it's not quite there. I really like the verse melody and the lyrics. But the chorus does feel a little bit lazy to me. I don't love how they rhyme "say what you say" with "say that you'll stay." It just kind of feels a little bit rushed, and I might piss off some Oasis fans with this take. But I think the chorus melody of this song was actually better used in the song "Whatever It Takes," which is by the band Lifehouse. I'm pretty sure that they borrowed that from this song because it's like a very similar lyric in that song as well. But I actually prefer their use of this melody, even if they borrowed it. And I knew that the song had reminded me of a song, so then I kind of went on a hunt to find it, and that was the song. But even though Oasis is a much better band than Lifehouse, I do prefer their use of that melody. The track "Be Here Now," the title track, I think is a really solid rocker. I think it's one of the stronger album tracks. I wouldn't say it's quite up to par with the strongest tracks from their first two albums, but I think it's enjoyable enough. And then, of course, we get to All Around the World, which is kind of Oasis' attempt at making like a big sing-along anthem like Hey Jude. Musically, I actually think it's pretty solid. I think it has a good melody, very Beatlesque. Again, you can tell that that's kind of what they were going for. But I have to say, there's no reason that this needs to go on for 9 minutes. I could handle it being longer if there was some interesting stuff happening towards the end of the song, but literally the last half of the song is just key changes and the song is getting louder. So I don't think it's a bad song, and there's some elements of it that I do like. But in terms of its runtime, it's definitely the biggest offender on this album, and I can see why this song has kind of gotten a mixed reception from listeners. So, yeah, overall though, this album, I think it has some strong moments, and I think it had the potential to be much closer in terms of its quality to the first two albums than it ended up being. I just think that it's a little over bloated, and I think, like Riley said, a little too loud, and it's kind of like you said, it's like the cocaine album. It's the sound of guys that are just coked out of their minds and just going louder, louder, louder. We need more. And this is kind of what you get. So I can see why this album gets criticized, but I enjoy quite a bit of it.
All right.
Nope. Top two. What could they
I
be?
wonder what our top twos are going to be, guys.
What are they going to be?
Very, very diverse. Although I don't think there is a wrong answer. And I'm saying that because I think I'm picking the less popular option as my number one. Because my number two is What's the Story, Morning Glory. But I am still giving it a 10 out of 10. I think it is a perfect album. Just I'll get to that. I'll get to it. So it is a perfect album. I don't think there's a single miss on here. I think the opener is Hello is awesome. I love how it kind of like starts with Wonderwall.
It does, yeah.
It's not Wonderwall, and that's something you see in a lot of their songs. Is a little fake you out a little bit, especially around this era. Roll With It is awesome, and Wonderwall is as good as a song as it's been played out to be. It is absolutely overplayed, but you cannot deny that it is genius songwriting from Noel. It's a very catchy song. I just wish it didn't have a bunch of douchebags with guitars trying to mime it, because otherwise I think it'd probably be my favorite song on the album, but it's a little tainted by those douchebags who play guitar at fucking parties and be like, here's Wonderwall, and you know what I mean? Joke's been played to death. Don't Look Back in Anger for me is one of the most perfect songs ever written. I don't care that it borrows the opening chord riff from Imagine, because it's not really a riff if it's just C, C, F, F. It's just C and F chords played back and forth. Plenty of songs have done that. The Only Living Boy in New York by Simon and Garfunkel does that. Fucking Imagine does that. Dude, why do you care about 2 seconds of the song? I think that this is it's not like, if there was a level higher than instant classic, that's what this song would be. I fucking love this song. It has one of the greatest choruses ever written. I think Noel gives such a powerful and evocative and emotive vocal performance. It is one of my favorite songs of all time. I think if I don't know, I've been listening to it on repeat ever since I got the tickets. I fucking love Don't Look Back in Anger. It's without a doubt my favorite Oasis song. It's not even close. Hey Now rocks. Swamp Song is 44 seconds, so we don't really have to give a shit about that. It's just a little interlude for the album. Some might say, I already talked about this one when we or started the episode. This was the first song I listened to by them. I remember my brother showing me the song in the car. I will never not remember that moment. I love the chord changes on it. I love how rocking and powerful it is. I love that chorus. I've been standing at the
Yeah.
that was the song that got me into alternative rock. I fucking love it. It's probably my second favorite song on the album. Cast No Shadow is probably my least favorite song on the album, just because I think it's generally weak compared to everything else on it. But it's still a fantastic song. This album suffers from how good it actually is. She's Electric. It's a little Beatlesy, and when I say little, it's very Beatlesy. But that does not make it a bad song. I don't care if it borrows a little bit from fuck, what's that Beatles song? I'm blanking. Whatever. I don't care. I don't even need to mention that Beatles song. I think it's just a great song. It's very catchy. It's probably one of their most like poppiest songs in their catalog. Morning Glory is such a fucking rocker. And Champagne Supernova is another one of those instant classics. I actually prefer the live version from Nebworth though, because John Squire is on lead guitar. John Squire from the Stone Roses popped out to Nebworth to do I Am the Walrus and Champagne Supernova, and I think his guitar rips. I think Liam gives a great performance on that. The studio version it's one, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's 7.5 minutes, but I absolutely love it. What's the Story? Morning Glory is one of those albums. It's as great as it is. It's one of the fastest selling albums in British history. It's up. It might be one of the greatest British albums ever released. Yet it is somehow not my favorite Oasis album. So
So number two for me is definitely Maybe. I will say this is an amazing debut album. I really think that they came out of the gate so strong. Like the 1-2 punch of definitely Maybe What's the Story, Morning Glory. That would be hard for any group to top. And it really shows just like, how incredibly talented Noel was as a songwriter, that he had all these songs that he was just sitting on. Rock Roll Star, I think it's a great opener. Live Forever, I think is such a moving song. I think I get chills listening to it. I will say,
Me too.
I can see why people really liked them at the time, because I think it was a breath of fresh air. When you compare this to grunge is very dour. I hate my life. I want to die. This is like, you know what? Who cares about the small stuff? We can live forever. We can fly. It's such a moving song.
Mhm.
I know you mentioned Slide Away. That's a great song. That's a great second to last, like penultimate song, just like such like anthemic song. Not say that. Anthemic song, but the one that really surprised me was Married with Children. I love that song. I think that's a great closer. It's so witty. It's so witty and it's so simple, but it works. I think it was inspired by Noel's girlfriend at the time, who was basically saying your music is shite. So he wrote that song because he was like mad. And I read that they recorded it in one take on a bed, which I think is really awesome. But yeah, honestly, a very consistent album from start to finish. Not a bad track on there. Those are just some of my favorites on the album. And I really think that, like I said, I think it's just such a great debut, and it's definitely, I think there's a reason why it's considered
definitely.
there's definitely maybe a reason it's considered one of the greatest debuts ever. I would just say the reason why it's my number two instead of number one is I think What's the Story, Morning Glory, the highs are a little bit higher for me, but this is still amazing record. Like you said, 10 out of 10 record easily.
Yeah, so for me, my number two is also definitely Maybe. Like Matt said, I think this is an incredible debut, probably one of the best debut albums ever. So many amazing songs on here, just really strong from start to finish. The album opens with Rock and Roll Star, which I think is a solid opener. Has a lot of energy to it, and I really like the production with the heavy guitar. It kind of introduces you to their sound right away, which is cool. I wouldn't say it's my favorite of Oasis singles, but it is a good way to start the album. The next song, Shaker Maker. This one took a few listens to grow on me, but I do like it quite a bit now. It has like a very like shoegazy sound to it with the production, with like the droning guitar, which I think is pretty cool. And I also like the melody, even if it was borrowed from that one song. I know Coca-Cola sued them, which I think is kind of funny.
Yeah,
like the melody being technically borrowed, I guess, but I do think it's a really good melody, and I think it's a really well-produced track. Live Forever. This is one of my favorite songs of all time. It is my favorite Oasis song, and it's one of my favorite Britpop songs as well. I love everything about this song. I think the melody's fantastic. I love the production, the guitar, and Liam's vocals, just like such a great vocal from him. And of course, like the powerful and uplifting lyrics. Like Matt said, the song's like a breath of fresh air. I also love at the end Liam's wailing, "Gonna live forever." It always gives me chills. So
I want to also
really,
I also want to, sorry to cut you off. I want to give a shout out to the version that they sang at One Love Manchester. That's a very touching performance of the song. I think in general, just like some of the Oasis songs, that one and Don't Look Back in Anger, I think they just like took on a whole new meaning when they performed that back in Manchester after the
yeah,
terrible bombing that happened. And
yeah.
that's one thing I just want to say, I do give Ariana Grande a lot of props for coming back and doing that benefit concert. She did not have to do that, and that took a lot of bravery.
So the next track, Up in the Sky. This is a pretty decent song. I like the catchy riff and it's a good vocal from Liam as well. I wouldn't say it's quite as memorable as the previous 3 tracks from the album, but I do think it's pretty solid. The next track, Columbia, is a very strong track as well. Again, kind of has like that shoegazy sound that Shaker Maker had with the kind of the droning guitar. I really like the chorus of the song a lot, like the "I Can't Tell You the Way I Feel" and Liam's vocals. I will say that this is one of the tracks that maybe feels a little bit too loud for my liking. I feel like the guitar is almost overpowering the vocals on this one. I wish they toned down the guitar maybe just a little bit. And it maybe goes on a minute too long as well, but I do like the song, and it's one I could see growing on me even more over time. Supersonic was one of my favorite songs on the album. I think it has a really great melody and production. I also really like the backing vocals during the pre-chorus. I think that's really cool. Bring It Down. This is one of the heaviest rockers on the album. I really love the guitar playing on this one. I think it really elevates the song. Again, maybe not quite as memorable as some of the other songs on here, but I still think it's a really great rocker, and it's one that I do enjoy. Cigarettes and Alcohol. I know that this one's a fan favorite and considered one of the highlights of the album, but I actually wouldn't say it's one of my favorite tracks on here. I think it's a good rocker, but I have to say it doesn't really grab me like some of Oasis's other songs do. And it's also not my favorite Liam vocal either. I'll also say that I like the guitar riff, but I think T-Rex did it better, in my opinion, on Get It On, Bang the Gong. I think it's a better use of that riff, but a good song. It's not my favorite. Dixie's Dinner. I think that this song is actually pretty good. I don't think it's considered one of the stronger tracks by fans, but I actually like it quite a bit. I think it's very melodic, and I really like the bridge section. Like, these could be the best days of our lives, but I don't think we've been living very wise. I also really like the little piano solo during the song. I think that's nice too. And yeah, it's just a very enjoyable song. Slide Away. This is another one of my all-time favorite Britpop songs. Like Live Forever, it has a really uplifting melody and lyrics. And I think it's another one of Liam's best vocals too. He sings the hell out of this song, and it's probably my second favorite track in the album. I think it's incredible. And then the album closes with Married with Children, which is kind of a change of pace from a lot of the rest of the album because it's kind of like a more laid back sounding like acoustic ballad. But I really like this one a lot. I'm with Matt. I think it has a good melody, a very Beatlesque sound to it, and a really smooth vocal delivery from Liam. He's singing in a different style on this song than he does on most of the other album, where he's got kind of that, that nasally, kind of like that whining voice, as people call it. But I think it really suits those songs well, where on this one, it's more of a smooth vocal. And I also really like the lyrics on this one as well. Like Matt mentioned, it's kind of like I would describe it as like the lyrics kind of say like, "I'm done with your shit, see you later." Like that's kind of the vibe that I got from the lyrics of this song. But I think it's a really fun track. It's maybe not my absolute favorite Oasis ballad, but I do think it's a great way to close the album. So one last thing I wanted to mention before I wrap up here, the song Whatever should have made this album as well. I would have preferred that song over a couple of the tracks that made it on. But again, all in all, though, this is a near perfect album. So many amazing songs on here, and it's hard to really come up with a better debut than this. It's fantastic. So yeah, that's my number.
Also, too, for some reason, Digsy's Dinner was called Digsy's Diner on the original American CD.
I thought I read that, but then I checked again and it said Digsy's Dinner, so I'm confused.
So it was Digsy's Diner on the original CD. I just pulled it up on Discogs, and it actually does Digsy's Diner on the original CD.
See, that sounded more right to me than Dixie's Dinner, but when I looked it up, I saw Dixie's Dinner. I was like, huh.
I don't think it's a near perfect album. I think it's a perfect album. Definitely maybe is my number one. I think that the reason this kind of pushes over What's the Story, Morning Glory for me is I feel like the music on here matches Oasis's image a little bit more than the super polished sound that What's the Story, Morning Glory has. I love the messiness of the guitars. It's weird because you see people say, "Oh, this is them imitating the Beatles." I think they sound way more like the Sex Pistols than the Beatles. And they were very much influenced by the Sex Pistols. And I think this album is actually like a perfect marriage between Beatles 1969, 1970 songwriting with like Let It Be era Beatles, I guess Get Back era Beatles for the diehard fans, mixed with the Sex Pistols. And it merges to me to be definitely maybe for me. Um, I think the pure, raw, like unhinged energy of Liam and Noel's attitudes match perfectly with songs like Supersonic or Columbia, Up in the Sky. Um, I just like the sound better. It just works a lot better for me. But they're both 10 out of 10 albums. As for the actual album itself, Rock and Roll Star is an incredible opener, not just to the debut album, but just like to the general catalog. This kind of foreshadows what they're going to be in a couple of years with all the fucking cocaine. Shaker Maker has a hell of a guitar riff. Um, Live Forever is one of the all-time greatest songs. And it's crazy because the verses are the same, but the choruses are different, which I think is really cool. And I think it's just it has that emotion in there. And I fucking kicks grunge's ass because I hate grunge. I think it's awesome. There's like the story with Noel. He's like, oh, I heard a song by Kurt Cobain, and it's like Kurt Cobain said, I want to hate myself, I want to die. I'm like, fucking hell, man. Like, what are you talking about? I want to live. And I think
I do think Noah was a fan of Kurt, though.
I think he was a fan of Kurt, and I think he also appreciated Kurt's Beatles influence, and I think he had respect for him. Um, but I think it's funny because Liam and Noel grew up in an abusive household, very poor, and here you have Kurt Cobain, who lived in fucking Seattle, saying, I want to kill myself and I want to die. And you have these two guys, all things considered, probably could have killed themselves, and they're writing songs called Live Forever and Don't Look Back in Anger, which is why I fucking hate grunge and why I fucking love Britpop.
Can I say one thing about that too, real quick before you go on? I do want to give Noah a lot of credit for breaking the cycle of abuse because that's something that's very hard
They're
to
both
do.
great fathers. I mean, even with all the fucking cocaine, they were
Well,
both.
I don't know how true this is, but I read that Liam kind of didn't get the abuse as badly from their dad because he was kind of like the golden child. Not saying he wasn't.
It's like with the Wilsons. It doesn't really.
Yeah,
It's still abuse.
because I think Noel got some of the worst.
Yeah. Well, Noel's also like they're both like fucking loudmouths, and that's why I love them. That's what I love about Oasis, and people hate about them for. I think that they are so in your face, but they are so brutally honest. They're so upfront with how they feel. They're not the corporate image rock stars that are being pushed out today, where it's just the piles of shit and PR teams choosing what they're going to say. These guys run their own Twitter accounts. Shout out Liam Gallagher's Twitter. They are so in your face. Wait, like there's that video of Liam with the paparazzi coming at him. He's like, "Whoa, whoa, you want to fucking go?" And I absolutely love that because in a world of like fake people and just PR teams and Shishu who must not be named, more than one of them, you have these two guys who are so brutally like in your face that I fucking love it. It's how can you not like it? They're honest. They're real people. They're not fake. They're real. And that's why I love Oasis and why they grew on me, even past the music, just honestly as people. I don't care if they're like assholes to the press. I want that more than anything else in music.
By all accounts, too, they're very good to the fans. They're assholes to the press.
And like with the tickets thing, that wasn't even their fault with the tickets. That was fucking Ticketmaster. But in there, I feel like they definitely tried their best to at least get fans tickets. Granted, that's coming from somebody who got a ticket, so like, but they're definitely like apologetic about it. Anyways, back to my favorite Oasis album. Live Forever is one of the all-time greats. It's in my top 5 favorite songs from the band. Up in the Sky fucking rips. I love that guitar riff. That's where you kind of get like that Sex Pistols, and honestly a little glam rock influence in there too. Columbia is like song structurally wise is very simple, but it fucking rips. It's just like 4 chords, but it rips. It's in your face. I love Liam. That's what I love about Oasis. They can take simple songs, but like through like sheer fucking will, they make the song way better. Supersonic is one of the most badass songs I've ever heard. I'm shocked that isn't used in movies more, especially with the little pick scrape at the beginning. There, and Bring It On Down continues that vibe. So does Cigarettes and Alcohol. Jake, I'm not with you on that. I think it kicks Bang Gong's ass. I played this song the minute I turned 21. not that long ago. I love it. I actually played that song like 15 times that day. I love it. Dixie's Diner, Dixie's Dinner, however you want to fucking say it. It's like it's weird because like you never see this one mentioned, but it just shows to go how quality this album is. That this just like random ass song like that I'd honestly be one of the best songs on any of like some of the later period albums, minus Don't Believe the Truth or Sitting on the Shoulder of Giants. Um, Slide Away is my second favorite Oasis song. I love the studio version, but I love the live version even more because you have that bit of, depending on the era, Liam or Noel going on in the background as the song starts to fade out for like the last minute. They're saying vocally, they're like, I don't know, I don't care. All I know is you take me there, take me there, take me there. It's so fucking cool. If you guys haven't seen the live version, it's like seeing like the Beach Boys do like Surfing USA live, where it's or Help Me Rhonda live, where it's just holy shit, this song has so much power. I think it's great verses, and the chorus is so powerful and emotive, and it's followed up by Married with Children, which I'm with you guys, absolutely rips. I think I love it, and I told Matt this before we started. I love it when you have an album that the penultimate song is this huge fucking rocker, the stadium rocker, and then the last song is just this really relaxed, cool down song.
Yep.
Kind of brings everything back home.
Yep. And the other example we used was Jake, you want to hear Layla, the Derek and Donna's album, because you have the title track. That's this big rip roaring rocker, and then you have Thorn Tree in the Garden, which is like this nice emotive ballad at the end.
You know
Nice.
that could have been Help by the Beatles, but instead we got something else at the end.
I'm a Dizzy Miss Lizzy defender, but that's
Yeah, but not on the place. I think it's a fine song, the placement. And I also say Outside the Wall, following the trial on Pink Floyd's The Wall. But honestly, I think this might be the best example of it being used on an album, though, because you have an album full of these Sex Pistols influenced rockers. And then you have the music shot, it keeps me up all night, up all night. I love the little lead guitar on it too, of just a plugged in electric. There's no effects on it. It's just a little like clean electric guitar tone over the acoustic. But yeah, the attitude on this album's there. The energy's there, and it kicks Alice in Chains' ass. It kicks Nirvana's ass. It's honestly, if we redid the albums video, it might kick Elvis Costello out of my top 10.
Speaking of Nirvana, because you just mentioned it, I wanted to say something that you mentioned earlier. You said that you like this one better because it's a little bit more raw versus the more polished What's the Story, Morning Glory. That's kind of like how some Nirvana fans prefer In Utero over Nevermind, because Nevermind is the more polished poppy version, whereas with In Utero, it's more raw, it's more heavy, it's more of what Steve Albini wanted to do. So I just thought that was an interesting point you made. I just wanted to
It's personal taste. Sorry, I gotta get down on the floor here to charge this because I'm already running out of battery. It all comes down to personal taste. And like I said, I feel like, first of all, both 10 out of 10 albums, I mean, they are really interchangeable for most people. I told you at the beginning, though, like, this was like the easiest decision for me. I was like, oh my God, it totally goes over What's the Story, Morning Glory. I had trouble picking the other ones on how to rank them. Like, this was like really easy for me. I think the attitude's there, matches Liam and Noel's energy. I love the contributions from Bonehead and Diggsy. I think they're weird. They're kind of like the Beach Boys, because I feel like that's the best people we can kind of relate to, basing on where we come from with our channel. It's kind of like the Beach Boys touring band without
Billy Hinchy.
Yes,
Billy
Hinchy. It's
like in the prime, yeah.
It's like Beach Boys without Billy Hinchy. It's like, even though, first of all, they were official members of the band. They were with Liam before Noel joined. And then obviously Noel joined, and he said on the terms that he would write all the songs. They were vital members. And that you kind of hear that Oasis, you hear the general saying you hear with a lot of bands, Oasis really ended in 2000 when Bonehead and Diggsy left. And I don't think it's true, because obviously I like Don't Believe the Truth and Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. But yeah, and you hear that, and I think that's where you get a lot of that epic raw sound on this album, is from those other members, which is what I really love about this album more than anything, because it matches their unhinged energy. And that's where I get a lot of my like radio show shit from. It's just their energy. I love their energy. That's why I still love Oasis.
Yeah, so number one for me, obviously, What's the Story, Morning Glory. Don't have too much to add other than what you said, but yeah, it's a super strong album, very cohesive, full of bangers, full of just these great anthemic,
Mick.
anthematic songs. Hello's a great opener. Wonderwall. I know a lot of people like make fun of that song, but I find it a very moving song, honestly. Especially like when like the strings kick in and everything. But I do want to say something when you mentioned the douchebags with guitar. This would have been a good song to use in Barbie. If you remember the scene in Barbie where Ken is on the beach and playing the Matchbox 20 song, this would have been a good one to use because it was like the douchebags playing guitar. Don't Look Back in Anger, I think is a very moving song. I think it's a great sing-along track, like you mentioned. I still kind of have you screaming it in the radio show in my ear sometimes when I listen to it. But yeah, and I think this was a perfect song for Noel to sing. I think it suits Noel's voice really well. And he's got a great belting voice too, because that's not an easy song to sing, but he pulls it off really well. Some might say is great. She's Electric, Morning Glory, and then of course Champagne Supernova is a great closer. Just a very strong album from start to finish. And it's not hard to see why this was not only like when you said one of the best-selling albums in British history, but also this was their true American breakthrough. It sold 4 million copies in the States. It's an amazing album, and there's a reason why I know the list was very controversial, the recent Apple Music list, but it was on the top 100, and it's not hard to see why. It's an amazing record. It really, really is. I was gonna say, I think that, like I said, Noel just, really is a very great songwriter. I think that unfortunately, some people kind of wrote him off, and I think that to come from the background he did, being abused, very working class, not ashamed of being from the working class. This was a time in Britain where like, especially like Margaret Thatcher, and not to get too much history here, but Margaret Thatcher and her, administration kind of made it like almost like you should be ashamed to be working class. And there's a lot of classism in Britain in general. They have a big classism there. They were not afraid to be working class. They were not afraid to do that. And I think that's why they spoke to so many people. And that's why their music touched so many people's lives. And this is just such a great fucking record. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
There's that story because you mentioned it when you said Liam singing Wonderwall and Noel singing Don't Look Back in Anger. No, Liam was given the choice to sing either Wonderwall or Don't Look Back in Anger. And Liam wanted to sing Don't Look Back in Anger, but then I guess their producer said, no, Wonderwall is going to be the hit. And he's like, all right, then I'll sing Wonderwall. And I think that is one of the greatest choices in, I guess, rock history, because I cannot see Liam singing Don't Look Back in Anger.
I can't either.
I can sort of imagine Noel singing Wonderwall, but it would not be as good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and also, too, that is the most streamed song from the 90s on Spotify, if I'm not mistaken.
as it should be. I mean, I wish it didn't have the reputation it did, because I'm almost embarrassed to play that song in the car. Even by myself, I'm like, come on, it's a good song. Listen to it, Riley. Listen to it. I love Wonderwall. It's incredible. Yeah.
All right.
Jake?
Yeah, so my number one is also What's the Story, Morning Glory. Again, it's an incredible follow-up to their debut. So many amazing songs on here, pretty much perfect from start to finish. I kind of make the same observation with this one as you, Riley, where the debut definitely sounds more raw. I can definitely see why you prefer the debut, like with the guitars and everything. It just sounds more loud and powerful, where like this, I think, leans a little more into like the melodic songwriting than it does like the really powerful and heavy production. So, but that said, though, I really like the songwriting on this album. And these are kind of interchangeable for me, to be honest. Like one day I might say I prefer Definitely Maybe, and the other I might say What's the Story, Morning Glory. So this is like barely ahead of it right now for me. But going over the track listing, so the opener is Hello. I think this is a solid opener. I like the guitar on it. Honestly, though, for me, this one's kind of still growing on me. For me, it's not quite as memorable as some of the other tracks on the album, but I do think it's a good way to start the album. Roll With It. This one took a few listens to click with me, but I do really like it now. I think it has a great melody and great production. I really love the guitar sound on this, and I think that guitar sound really elevates the song from good to great. And I think it's a step up from the opener, even if it's maybe not quite as strong as some of the other singles from the album. Wonderwall. So from what I've seen with this song, there's two general opinions. Either it's overplayed and overrated, or it's overplayed but a damn good song. Personally, I kind of fall in between those two. I do think it's a well-written song. I like the lyrics. I think they're moving lyrics, and I like the production with the acoustic guitar and strings. That said, though, I can't say I connect with this one in the way that I do with some other ballads. Maybe that's just because I've heard it too much. But like I think of some other like Britpop ballads, like "The Drugs Don't Work" by the Verve. That song I connect with a lot more, like both musically and lyrically. So I do think it's a good song, though. I can see the appeal of it, but I wouldn't say I'm the biggest fan of it personally. I do think Oasis has some better songs, but I do think it's a strong track. Don't Look Back in Anger. I think this is an incredible song. This is definitely my top 5 in terms of my favorite Oasis songs. Really just blows me away. Fantastic songwriting from Noel. I love the way that the verses build up to that powerful chorus, and really strong lyrics too. Even as somebody that doesn't really prioritize lyrics with music, even I can acknowledge that these are some really damn good lyrics on this. And again, I also really love Noel's lead vocal. I didn't even know before preparing for this episode that this was the first single that he actually sang lead on. And before that, he only sang on B-sides. So I think he did a hell of a job on this. And like Riley said, I can't picture Liam singing this. I think it just fits Noel's voice so well. So really great track there. Hey Now, I really like the song a lot. Love the production on it and the sound of the guitar. I really love that pre-chorus as well, like "There's no time for running away now, hey now." I think that's a really good vocal from Liam. I will say it's maybe a little bit too long for my liking. I don't know if I needed it to go on 6 minutes, but I do think it's a very enjoyable song, and it's one that I definitely will be re-listening to. Some might say this is yet another amazing song and one of the highlights of the album for me. Like Riley mentioned, I love that chorus. Because I've been standing at the station, need of education. Such a good melodic chorus. And some pretty interesting lyrics on this one too. I wrote down the line, "Some might say they don't believe in heaven. Go and tell it to the man who lives in hell." I think that's a really good lyric. So, really awesome song there. Another highlight of the Oasis catalog. Cast No Shadow. I'm kind of with Riley on this one. It's still kind of growing on me. I think it's a pretty ballad, and I like the production on it. But compared to some of the other songs on here, I don't think it's quite as strong. It's not one of my favorites. But I could see this one growing on me over time. I think I just need to listen to it a little bit more. She's Electric. I love this song. I think it's a lot of fun. I know it's very like Riley said, very Beatlesque, but I think it's just a great time. Really catchy melody, fun lyrics. And this is one of the songs I remember clicking with me really early on. Like when I first started listening to Oasis, this was one of the first songs I remember saving. Like, oh, this is great. So really like this one a lot. And I also like that little nod to the Beatles at the end, like with that little fade out at the end. I think it's "With a Little Help from My Friends" is a song that it's kind of referencing there, but I really like that a lot. Morning Glory. Once again, I hate to repeat myself, but incredible song. One of the band's best rockers. I think it's one of Liam's best vocals as well. He sings the hell out of it. And he gives the song even more power than it already has. I mean, the heavy guitar and production is powerful enough, but then Liam just screaming the vocal. It's just an awesome track. And it's one of my favorites on the album. And then, of course, the album closes with Champagne Supernova, which is a super great track. Really epic sounding song. I think it's the strongest ballad on the album as well. I really like the kind of like psychedelic sounding production on this song. And it's one of those ones where like it goes on a long time, like it's 7 minutes, but it doesn't really outstay its welcome. So, and I'm somebody that, complains sometimes about, oh, I don't like songs going on 6-7 minutes. But this one, I think it's fantastic from start to finish. So I think it deserves all the praise and acclaim it gets. And I think it's a fantastic way to close the album. So yeah, all in all, I think What's the Story, Morning Glory is a fantastic album. A lot of great songs on it. Some of my very favorite songs from the band. And I think it's pretty much neck and neck with me with Definitely Maybe. Like I said, if you ask me another day, I might say Definitely Maybe is my favorite. So great album. Great album.
All right. I think you'd be kind of stupid if we didn't mention not just the master plan, but more in general, the singles and B-sides of Oasis. I kind of want to, rather than just kind of talk about it like track by track, like as if we're like reviewing the album, like with our little mini reviews, I think it'd be better off if we just kind of list off some of our favorites. I'm sure you guys are all going to mention this one, Half the World Away. It's kind of like Married with Children, but honestly, a little step higher for me. I think Noel gives such a delicate vocal. It's so soft, very pretty song. I love the little lead guitar again with like the clean tone. One of my other favorites is Listen Up. I think
Yes.
that one absolutely rips. I thought it was like, is this just like a lost version of Supersonic that's just being released on the master plan? And then it turns into its own song. And I think the chorus is so fucking awesome. and
Yeah.
Liam screaming. It's funny. You hear it a lot with British bands. It's like singles are very different from album releases, and that's why some singles just didn't pop up on album releases. And I honestly think that makes perfect sense. I mean, granted, this is on Definitely Maybe or What's the Story, Morning Glory. I would fucking love it, but Listen Up, absolutely incredible. Definitely worth a mention. Jake mentioned Whatever. I love that one.
Yeah.
The Master Plan, Acquiescence, two very different songs, but for whatever reason, I kind of see them going hand in hand because they open and close the Master Plan. Master Plan is a very beautiful acoustic song, and I think Acquiescence fucking rips. Kind of moving on to some of the singles from their later period stuff. Let's All Make Believe. Jake mentioned this one. I kind of do wish it was on Standing on the Shoulder of Giants because I can honestly see that one pushing it above Don't Believe the Truth. But I also wanted to mention another single. I think it was the B-side to Who Feels Love, One Way Road. I think that's a very beautiful acoustic song that I feel like they never really missed when they went acoustic. And yeah, that's kind of all the ones I had written down in my notes. I kind of want to talk about some of their cover songs because I feel like they are very hit or miss. I really not a fan of their cover of My Generation. I'm a massive Who fan. I think they did a fine cover, but releasing it as part of a singles package rather than just like doing it live, I feel like is kind of a disservice. I love their cover of Come On, Feel the Noise. I feel like Liam gives such a powerful vocal for that. And I actually prefer it to the original version, which is probably heresy. But the biggest one I wanted to mention was I Am the Walrus because I'm going to get crucified for this. I think their version absolutely slams the Beatles version, and it's not even close for me. And I'm referring specifically to the Master Plan version, not the Nebworth one, because the Nebworth one has strings. What I love about the Master Plan version, it was live from 1994. It's all guitar, it's all heavy. Liam is giving a fucking spitfire, full attitude vocal, and it gives it such a different angle than the Beatles version. Because the Beatles version is awesome. It's a masterpiece in production, and it is a 10 out of 10 song. But this Oasis version is so full of attitude, full of everything I want from Oasis. I love the opening where Liam's like, "Of course it's out of tune. Doesn't need to be out of tune. Fuck if it's out of tune." He just rips right into the song, and it's so fucking cool. It's badass. I love it. I love the guitars on it. It's so heavy. I'm gonna get crucified by Beatles fans for saying that. Probably gonna be banned from the Beatles subreddit. Probably never gonna be allowed anywhere related to the Beatles for saying that the Oasis version by I Am the Walrus is leagues better, but I will stand by my point. I fucking love that cover version from the Master Plan. But the Master Plan, I'm glad they released it. I know a lot of people rank it with the albums. I think it's a bit unfair, but it is an awesome release. And I think it's really fucking cool that a band known for two of the greatest albums of all time has a bunch of B-sides that equal a lot of the songs from the debut and What's the Story. So, yep, that's my spiel about the B-sides and Master Plan. So,
Sorry, I was muted. Did you mention Talk Tonight? I really like that one. That was a very moving one.
it was on my list, yeah.
Yeah, that was the one that really stayed with me. Very moving song. And also like kind of finding out the backstory behind that one was like Noel wrote it after like the band nearly fell apart. So yeah, that was really good. But yeah, as a whole, all the ones you mentioned are great. And I really, really love that cover of I Am the Walrus. That is a great, great cover. But yeah, the Master Plan in general, like I said, if this was a like true blue studio album, it'd probably be number 3 for me. I mean, so much good material they were just putting on B-sides.
Yeah, so as for some of my thoughts on some of the Master Plan B-sides that are included on there, first off, I want to say, yeah, this band has to, in terms of B-sides, this band has to have some of the strongest B-sides ever. Some of any of these, like, I wish had made the albums because I think they're just fantastic. To start out, I'll mention the song Acquiescence or Acquiesce. I think that's an awesome rocker, has really great energy to it, and I really like how both Liam and Noel have lead parts on it. I think that makes it unique. And actually, this is one I'd never heard before doing this episode. So I'm really glad that I discovered it. I think it's a great rocker. I Am the Walrus, the live version. So my opinion on it, I think it's a really strong cover. I love the energy of it. I think it really suits Oasis's sound well. I like how they incorporated like the heavy guitars into it, like Riley said. That said, though, for me, it doesn't surpass the original. For me, part of what makes the Beatles version so great are like the production tricks and effects throughout the song. And this version does have more energy than the Beatles version, but for me, it's missing the strings, all those cool little like production elements that I like. So personally, I still prefer the Beatles version, but I do think Oasis did a hell of a job covering this song. Listen Up. I'm glad that Riley raved about this one because I absolutely love this song. I had never heard it before preparing for this, but I'm really happy that I know it now because I think it's fantastic. The production on this is incredible. I really love the guitar tone throughout this song, and Liam's vocals are amazing as well. And yeah, I just think it's great songwriting from Noel, and some really strong lyrics on this one as well. So this might be a bit of a hot take. I'm sure Riley's going to hate me for this one, but I actually prefer this to the song it was the B-side to, Cigarettes and Alcohol. So I wish this had made Definitely Maybe. I think it's a song. What's that?
I do too, actually.
Oh, do you? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, when we talk about our favorite songs, so we'll get to it.
Moving on, Rockin' Chair is another one of my favorite Oasis B-sides. This is one I actually have known for quite a while. I think I first heard it sometime last year. And I just think it's a really well-written song. I think it has a really great melody. I like the melancholic lyrics from Noel. And I think Liam's vocal really sells the lyrics as well. Like you can feel the desperation from Liam's vocals. Like it's hard enough being alone, standing here by the phone. I think it's just a really great vocal from Liam and just a really well-written song. So another one of my favorite Oasis B-sides. Half the World Away, like Riley mentioned, really pretty ballad, sung by Noel. I've read that this one was inspired by This Guy's in Love with You, which is one of my all-time favorite songs from Bacharach. So I think that's pretty cool. And this one has some very nice moving lyrics as well, which I relate with. So a very nice song. One that you guys didn't mention that I wanted to shout out, Stay Young. This is another one that I'd never heard before doing this episode, and it's another one that just blew me away. I think it's a fantastic melody. It's one of the more like power pop sounding songs in the Oasis catalog, I think, which is probably why I like it so much. I don't know why this didn't make Be Here Now. I was shocked to see that this was actually a Be Here Now. This was released around the time of Be Here Now because I think this would have been one of my favorite songs on the album. And I think it would have elevated that album for me. So really great song and one of my favorite, again, another one of my favorite B-sides. And then to shout out one song we already talked about, Whatever. This was released as a standalone, a single, but didn't make one of the albums. But I think it should have been included on Definitely Maybe. I think it's a great melody, very Beatlesque, and I love the production with the strings. Maybe goes on a little bit too long, but I do think it's a really strong song. And then to shout out one more song of the title track, The Master Plan. I know this song is really beloved by fans. It seems to be a fan favorite from what I've seen. Still kind of in the process of growing on me, but I do think it's a really strong song. I think the production especially is very good on this. I like the blend of the guitar with the strings and the horns. And I think Noel's vocal is very strong as well. So yeah, overall, I think this band released some incredible B-sides and standalone singles. And it definitely like, you know, they, even if they didn't release all these extra tracks, you know, they would already have a fantastic catalog. But the fact that you can go beyond those first two albums and have all these amazing standalone singles as well, it really makes the catalog even better. So a lot of great songs, and I wish some of these had made the albums, even if they might not have, you know, necessarily fit. So I love them.
All right, so we're gonna do the little compilation, but kind of similar to our album drafts with the Beach Boys. We're gonna do 20 songs, and we are going to do best 2 out of 3 vote makes it. So if 2 of us vote for a song, it'll get on. 2 of us don't vote for it, it will not. Yeah, let's get started. I have a feeling this is gonna be, at least the first half of this compilation is gonna be just all yeses. I have Live Forever. I feel like Rock and Roll Star and Shaker Maker are both great, but if we're gonna do a compilation of their whole career, we should start off with Live Forever. It's just, yeah. 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 I already had it written down, so I didn't even bother just typing it. All right, Matt.
Slide Away.
Slide Away. Dude, you guys have to listen to that live version of Slide Away. Jake, I assume you're saying yes to Slide Away.
I'm 100% Slide Away. That's literally, those are the first 2 songs I wrote on my list. Live Forever, Slide Away. So
all right. So yeah, Jake.
All right, I'm gonna jump to What's the Story, Morning Glory. Don't Look Back in Anger. I think it's one of their strongest songs. Like Riley said, it's like one of the best like choruses ever. Fun to sing along to, and just fantastic songwriting from Noel. All-time great song.
Great drinking song. I can yeah, I can seriously see like half these Oasis songs just being sang out in British pubs. And Matt, I assume you're saying yes to Don't Look Back in Anger.
All right.
Big time, yes. Yep. Big thumbs up. For me.
I wanted to throw out a little deep cut. Listen Up. I wanted to put Listen Up out there. I feel like it's a good gateway to the B-sides and singles of Oasis. I already have Jake's vote, so I assume I don't need Matt's. But Matt, have you listened to Listen Up? What do you think about it?
That was good. That was good. That was on the master plan. Yeah. I think I had a screenshot of that one because I was taking screenshots of the one I liked the most. But honestly, everything on the master plan was pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Listen
Yep,
up.
I had a screenshot on it. So, yep. Thumbs up for me.
All right, Matt, your turn. We're going Spitfire with this.
Wonderwall. I mean, I know it's like a meme at this point, but it's like it's so iconic. You know, you have to have it on there.
I'm gonna say no.
Really?
Because I love the song. It's a great song, but I want a bit more variety with
Okay.
Oasis. I feel like
That's
it's easy to just say, "Oh, listen to Wonderwall, listen to." So I
That's
get.
fair. Can I change my vote then? Since it's Jake, I think
No.
We need to have at least one no on this list.
fine. I was gonna say,
So, yeah, I feel like we're gonna get crucified for not including this, but I am gonna say no, just because it wasn't on my list either. Yeah, I know it's like kind of their defining song, so like if this was a legitimate compilation, we'd have to include it. But I think we should get some other songs on here, and everybody knows this one already. So why not introduce the people to some other ones? So
that's true. I mean, like I said, I get it. I was gonna say I was gonna pick something else from the master plan, but we can keep going. It's fine.
all right. Let's do. I'm gonna go with Morning Glory. From What's the Story, Morning Glory, fantastic rocker. Again, another one of my favorites from the band. One of Liam's best vocals, and I absolutely love this song.
I'm gonna say, oh well, we're already getting on. I was gonna say no, just because I think Morning Glory is a great rocker, but I don't know. I feel like we could get a little bit more diverse with the catalog, but that's also coming from like a diehard fan. So
I mean, I had it on my list, but I don't feel too strongly about it. So
damn. All right.
I mean, like I don't feel like. I mean,
Okay, well, all I'm gonna say is you guys are gonna be saying no to a lot of the rest of my songs because most of them are from the first two albums, with a few
I'm
exceptions.
probably gonna say yes. It's just more. You just happen to. You guys both happen to pick like two of the lesser favorite songs from those albums for me.
fine.
Okay.
I'll throw you a bone, Jake. Give it a yes. Just
Oh shit! All right.
Thanks, man. I
I'll
appreciate
throw
it.
you a bone. I'll throw you a bone. No, I liked it. I had it on my list. I wrote a note card down, but I
Yeah.
get what Riley's saying too.
All right. I'm gonna jump far ahead because I know Jake's gonna be, and you guys are gonna be both first two albums heavy. I'm gonna say "Fucking in the Bushes." One of my I love this song to death. I feel like this should, if we're gonna do an out of order compilation, I feel like this would be a hell of an opener right before Live Forever. I feel like it's the pure Oasis energy just a couple of years later. And it is an instrumental, so I know you guys might not vote for it, but I at least wanted to put out "Fucking in the Bushes."
Here's my thing. I do like it, but I feel like if we're gonna choose something from that album, I'd rather choose something else. So you know what? I'll say yes because it is a really good opener, and I do like it, and I do like a lot of the stuff on this one. It's just that wouldn't be the first one I would choose, but then again, it's out there, so why not throw it on there?
Fuck yeah, man! Standing on the shoulder of giants representation.
And I know Jake, that's a no for you, right?
You know my vote on that.
Let me go to since we're jumping around. Be Here Now. How about we do what's that one? Stand By Me.
Yeah. Thumbs up. Strongest song in the album.
That was a really good one. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one too. Very, very moving song.
Do you want to do the acoustic version for that one, or do you want to do
I don't care. Whichever one you prefer. Pick whichever one you like better.
Let's do the acoustic. Why not?
Do the acoustic one because I mean,
Is
you're
this like
expert.
is this like the '97 one by the pool or?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. Sure.
If you can find it on streaming, if you want to put it together or whatever.
I mean, we're probably gonna do a YouTube playlist anyway.
Yeah, YouTube.
Okay, that's fine. I don't really care. You can do whatever you want.
All right. I'm gonna go with another one from the second album, but I think it's one Riley will vote yes on. Some might say. I think it's another great song, fantastic chorus, and just another one of my favorites from that album. I think it's a fantastic track.
Yeah, Jake, you're getting my vote for that easily. That was the song that introduced me to alternative rock. Shout out my brother Dan. Seeing as we are bouncing around, and I know Jake is going to be very first two albums heavy. I'm gonna throw out Gas Panic. I think that this is one of their mid to late period rockers that fans like it. And it still has that energy in there of classic Oasis. So Matt gets my vote. Jake,
Yep.
have your thoughts on Gas Panic? If you
I
even
really
know.
liked Gas Panic. That was on my list for that album.
I have to re-listen to it, but I didn't write anything down about it, so I assume I wasn't a fan. But
So,
I
granted,
really
is
like
Gas
Gas
Panic.
Panic.
It is a bit of a grower because it is a very different sound. And I'll admit, the first time I listened to Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, it didn't click with me completely. Obviously, Fucking in the Bushes did, but that you have no idea how much adrenaline was pumped into my veins when I heard that opener.
I'm gonna put out "Stop Crying Your Heart Out." I think that's a very moving song, and it's by far my favorite on Heathen Chemistry.
thumbs up for I love it. Good, great battle.
Classic Noel songwriting.
All right. So I'm gonna nominate something so I don't just pick from the first two albums over and over again. I am gonna nominate something from a little bit later on. I'm gonna go with Songbird. I think, which is a really pretty ballad from Liam. I think it's a good way to get his songwriting represented on the album, and I think it's a really strong track. It's one of my favorites from that album, from Heathen Chemistry. So, really strong track.
Yeah, I'll give Liam. I do think Liam deserves some credit as a songwriter. I think I mean, obviously, I enjoyed his material with John Squire in the '90s with the Seahorses, and I enjoy some of the stuff that they did together in the new album. So I do think Liam deserves his props. So yeah, I'll vote yeah for Songbird. I do enjoy it.
Yes, for me too, for the same reasons that you mentioned.
All right. I'm gonna go to my third favorite Oasis album, "Let There Be Love" from "Don't Believe the Truth." I mean, I fucking love this song. I can understand why people might not. It is a pretty deep cut in the catalog, but I love it. I think it's one of Noel's greatest songs, just period. I love the way that him and Liam trade vocals. It's just very emotional song, and I think that if we are gonna get at least one song from "Don't Believe the Truth," that this should be the one. And I won't complain if we don't get any of the other ones on there.
Yes,
Let there be love.
that one was good. I remember that one was being good.
Last love.
What about you, Jake? Yes or no? I mean, I already voted yes, so it's going
Yeah,
on.
I think I wrote it was decent. But I probably wouldn't vote for it, but it's already on. So
Okay, so my turn, right?
yeah.
Let's pick something. Let's go to the B sides.
Yeah.
That cover of "I Am the Walrus." I want that on there. I think it's really good. I really like it a lot.
Oh my God, I hate that thing.
You gotta turn it off. There's a place you can turn off on the Mac.
Oh.
That was funny as hell.
So yes, I really like it. I think it's a rip roaring cover. I think it's like, damn, that thing is fucking good. I remember the first time I was like, my jaw was on the floor. So I want that on there.
Yep, you're getting my vote, obviously, with the effects and all.
Jake, I'm assuming no on that one.
Yeah, I'll give it a yes. Why not? Give him some live representation on there. It's fine.
How many spots do we have left?
Yeah, what are we at?
We are at we have 7 spots left.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
We got room.
All right, so I'm gonna go for a B side too. I don't know if you guys are gonna vote yes on it because I don't know if you guys mentioned it or not, but I think it's a really great song. Rockin' Chair. I think it's a great, well written song. I think Liam gives it a really great lead vocal, really desperation in his vocal, and I think it's a great lyrics as well. So I think it's a really moving song, and I think it's a strong B side that should have made an album. So
I have it as a screenshot, so that's a yes from me.
all right,
Say no, but you know what? Yeah, we can get a B set on there.
That's
Yeah, I'm gonna go Champagne Supernova, but I specifically want to go with the live version from Nebworth, not just because John Squire's on guitar, John Squire of the Stone Roses, of course, but I do think that it was one of the last songs they did as the act at Nebworth. That's like one of their most famous shows. And I do think that song absolutely rips live. But if not the live version, at least we can get the studio version on. So yeah, Champagne Supernova.
I'm fine with either version, especially because this is probably arguably their defining song in the United States. It was such a big hit. So yes for me. And I think
it's a yes. It's a yes from me too. Yeah, I would vote for the studio version just because like I actually haven't heard the live version yet. So
I'll send it to you.
I'm fine with either version, whichever one you prefer. I don't.
Okay.
It's your song. You can do whatever you want. Okay, jump into "Dig Out Your Soul," the Shock of the Lightning. I think that was my favorite on there, and I think it's good for like a later representation, like really late day representation of Oasis.
Yep, gets my vote.
That's thumbs up from me too. I like that one a lot. It's a great song.
All right, Jake.
All right. Let me think about this.
Jake said maybe.
I don't really know.
I don't really want to know.
let's go with a little bit more of a less obvious choice. Again, I am going to go from the first two albums, but this is a less obvious choice. I'm going to go with Hey Now. I think it's a really great vocal from Liam, and one that I didn't know before doing this. I think it's a really great track. Good vocal and well-written song.
No,
No.
All right. Hey
Hey,
Now.
it's fine, but
what I mean?
choose something that's a little bit more deep from the first two. I'd pick something else.
Okay.
Yeah. Ooh. I'm gonna go with, seeing as we have 4 spots left, and I'm looking at my master list, my master plan. I'm gonna go with Half the World Away. I think
Yes.
that's a great B-side, and it shows that even with the simplest songs, the brothers can produce something very awesome.
Big
So
yes from me. That was one of the ones that really stuck out really good on the master plan for me. So big yes from me.
Yeah, thumbs up for me. Love
all
it.
right, three songs left. So I'd
So I'm gonna make the case for Married with Children because I really like that song and I think that it's one of the better ones on Definitely Maybe. And I just think that I like how it's like very like acoustic, but it has that great smooth vocal from Liam, and it's just like so witty.
uh Jake, what do you say? I do want it on there, but we also are low on space, so I'll see what you vote.
I think we could use some more ballad representation to kind of balance it out. So I'll give it a yes. I think it's a good song.
Yeah, I'll
Thank
say
you.
yes. Too.
Thank
I'm
you.
happy.
I really like that one. So like that was the one that really took me by surprise in a good way. So I really would
Yeah,
like.
I think for that one, I think the lyrics are what does it for me. I just love
I
those
love
lyrics.
the lyrics. They're so like it's so witty, you know. It's
Yeah.
like so sarcastic and like your music is shy. I just love it. It's
Yeah,
something about it. It's just I love it.
All right. Jake.
Okay. All right. So then let's try. I know that didn't get Hey Now on, so let's try another kind of maybe less obvious choice from those albums. Let's go with She's Electric. Really great melodic songwriting from Noel. Love the Beatlesque melody. And I just think it's a really fun song. It's one of those really catchy and upbeat tracks, which I just really like. So, and it's one that was one of the first songs to click with me from the band as well. So I'd love to see it on. So.
I'm really split because I do like it, but I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no. I do like it though.
I'll throw you a bone. I'll give it a yes.
All right.
Thanks.
You threw me a bone with Married Children. I'll throw you a bone from She's Electric.
All right. So both of you, I feel like I'm gonna get no bones thrown at me.
I can throw you a bone with fucking in the bushes.
Oh, you did. I did. All right. All right. So I think we're all even.
Yeah, we all got something.
One to go.
One more to go, and it comes down to me. How?
I feel like you're the best one to get the last or to plead your case for this because you're the big Oasis guy.
Yeah, Supersonic's still not on. I just
What would be an awesome song for me to see live next year? See, I want to throw something from Standing on the Shoulder of Giants, but you know what? I'm gonna go Supersonic.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yes,
one of the most powerful songs that they've ever made. And do I want to go with the live version though? No, I'll go studio. Just keep things interesting. All right, I have the set list here. It's kind of CD era, so we don't have to do sides. It's gonna start off with Fucking in the Bushes, goes into Live Forever, Slide Away, Listen Up, Some Might Say, Supersonic, Gas Panic, Shock of the Lightning, She's Electric, Songbird, Stand By Me, specifically the acoustic version, Half the World Away, Rocking Chair, Morning Glory, Let There Be Love, Don't Look Back in Anger, Stop Crying Your Heart Out, I Am the Walrus live from 1994, and Champagne Supernova live from Nebworth 1996, and to close out, Married with Children.
I think that's a very good mix of like I think deep cuts, big hits, flows really well. I'm pretty happy with that.
This would be, dude, if this was the set list for the show I'm going to see, I would be very happy.
Yeah, I would just say though it's missing Wonderwall though, so it definitely probably couldn't be the set list for the show, but it definitely sounds interesting.
You see people on Twitter being like Liam, because you know he's going to answer. You see people saying like, Liam, is this on the set list? He's like, yes. Or he's like, not sure yet. He's been hinting at like what can make the set list. I'm sure in England, or at least in the UK leg, they're going to do a lot of deep cuts. US, I don't think I'm getting Listen Up. I'm definitely not getting Listen Up.
That would be awesome though.
So before we do some closing thoughts, Jake, I know you did the Blur episode with me, and I already know your opinion. But I figured for our fans to know who you picking, Blur or Oasis.
Well, as you said, Riley, you know my opinion. I am picking for my personal preference. Again, I want to emphasize, I'm not saying I think necessarily they are the better band, but for my personal preference, I'm going to say Oasis. Just because I think that those first two albums are near flawless. Not to say that Blur doesn't have some great albums. I discovered some great music from them doing that episode. I think they have some really strong Britpop albums. But like the highlights from Oasis are just so freaking high, and I just really connect with them. I find Noel's songwriting really moving, and I love Liam's vocals. It's just a great combination, and really, I mean, Oasis is such a recognizable band too. Like they have that sound that really defines them, especially on those first two albums with the really loud guitar, a little bit of shoegazy sound in there, and Liam's really distinctive vocals. So, yeah, between those first two albums, the B sides, and of course, quite a bit of material from the albums that followed as well. I just think it's a really strong catalog, and I would definitely say Oasis is my preference. Although I do think both bands have plenty of great stuff to offer.
I haven't listened to enough Blur to make a decision, but I did really enjoy exploring the Oasis material, and definitely walked away with some albums that I definitely will see myself returning to in the future.
It's hard because before we did this episode, I mean, first of all, Oasis, like I said, my gateway band for a while, like honestly, up until very recently, and this is nothing to do with the tour. It's just honestly, maybe just getting older. I mean, Blur is going to be my favorite band over them. I'm going to listen to Blur more. But when we're doing the re-listens for the episode, I was kind of shocked how close it actually came out to be. Just by sheer numbers of songs on my playlists. For Blur, I have about 50 songs on my playlist. For Oasis, I have 41. So it's a lot closer than I thought it would be just by sheer numbers. And then I'm looking at the quality of the songs on here. Some of those Blur songs I could probably see myself skipping, like if they came up on my, like when I'm driving or something. Damn near any of these Oasis songs, I'm gonna. It's a lot closer than I thought it was. And Blur is gonna, I'm like a more, they're a bit more influential in terms of my own like musical aspirations, I guess. But I'd be lying if I didn't say Noel wasn't a big influence on my own songwriting. I mean, I'm not saying I'm writing songs as good as Noel, and Lord knows I'm not. I don't think anybody ever will write a song as good as Don't Look Back in Anger unless their names are John or Paul or Brian Wilson. I think that's just one of the all-time greatest songs. But yeah, they're incredible. And I think one thing that they do have over Blur, even though I do like Blur better, I feel like they're a little bit more timeless. And I do think that
Universal.
Like Blur are very upfront about their Britishness.
That, and I think
Also,
also
Oasis isn't, but their songs are a lot more kindred towards everybody.
Yeah.
Blur is writing a song about the life of the daily British man, and so they should cut down on the pork loins to get some exercise, and how they feed the pigs. And all the people. Oasis is writing a song about don't look back in anger. More general topics, and I think that's something that they'll always have. I think that's why they do have a bit more of a universal appeal, and why they're selling out shows, and why Blur's audience at Coachella is leaving them. So,
well, and I think
Blur, but a little bit more, just a little bit more, but it's much. They're very close, and they are two of my favorite bands of all time. So.
Yeah, no, and I think also like kind of echoing or going off of that, like I feel like with Blur, like I can appreciate the songs. I also have to kind of be in the mood to listen to Blur. Like, okay, I'm going to listen to Blur right now, you know. But like with Oasis, like those songs can come on and like I'm always gonna enjoy them, you know, like I'm always gonna be like, oh, like this, I love this, you know. Where like with Blur, like depends on how I'm feeling, you know, like one day I might be like, yeah, I'll listen to this. Another day I might be like, nah, I'm not feeling that today. So, and I think that goes back to what you were saying, Riley. I think there's a universal quality to those Oasis songs, you know, where they become like anthems, you know. And part of that is also just the songwriting style of Noel. Like songs like Don't Look Back in Anger sound like they're meant to be like anthems. And you know, I just think Blur, while there's some really great songs, and I think their best songs definitely match a lot of Oasis's best songs, I just think I prefer the Oasis catalog based on my own taste and preferences. So.
Blur is very diverse, which kind of goes to their credit, and I think that is one of their appeals. At least for me, they have a lot of different stuff. They have a lot of different. They're much more artsy than Oasis, and maybe that's why I like them a bit more. But man, I don't think that I don't think Damon ever wrote a song as good as "Don't Look Back in Anger." As much as I love Park Life as an album, as much as I love Self-Titled as an album, and as much as I love like pretty much all of their albums. I love all of them, except maybe Think Tank. But even though I do like that one, fuck it, man. Don't Look Back in Anger is one of the greatest songs ever written. Live Forever is one of the greatest songs ever written.
Yeah.
Stay Away is one of the greatest songs I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Dude, I want to say it's quality versus quantity. If that that's like I guess like the most simple way I can put it. I don't think that's how I actually feel. But like if I was to put this in the simplest of terms, it's quality or quantity. And Oasis has a lot of fucking quality songs. You guys want to close up?
Let's wrap it up.
Hey,
Yep.
thank you guys for joining us for our fourth episode. I had to count for a second. Fourth episode of Off Timin. I had a great time talking about Oasis. I'm looking forward to seeing them live next year. If you guys didn't get a ticket, I'm sorry, but blame Ticketmaster and not the band. It's not the band's fault. But be sure to check us out next time. I'm sure we'll probably do another artist coming up eventually. Maybe the Monkees, right, Matt? You said something about the Monkees.
We could do the Monkeys if you want. I think that'd be interesting for all of us to do, and that'll be the one I get to lead.
Yeah.
fun.
So yeah, but we'll churn out some content for you guys. Be sure to check out the Good Time in podcast, Spotify, Apple Music, and of course YouTube. If you guys aren't Beach Boys fans, I would be sure to check out some of the episodes. We do a compilation draft for certain eras, and I feel like that'd be a good way to get into the Beach Boys. But yeah, check out the Good Time in podcast if you want to become a Beach Boys fan or are a Beach Boys fan. If not, I'm sure we'll churn out another video sometime soon. So see ya. Don't look back in anger.